Good morning and welcome to this webinar about successful introduction of eHealth with Calpro Smart Home Test in the clinic, but also towards the patients. I will also talk about advantages replacing standard care with eHealth. Just to give you an idea about this presentation that I am going through, we have here in the beginning 3 or 4 slides with presentation of the Calpro company and with presentation of the Calpro Smart Home Test. This is mainly for those of you who do not know the company or the product. Afterwards, I have about 10 slides about the subject itself. How do we introduce home tests successfully in the clinic and towards the patients? But briefly about the Calpro company. Back in the 80s, a young scientist discovered a protein that he named calprotectin. He discovered that the human body produces this protein when you have an inflammatory state somewhere in your body. And he found out that if you suffer from a bowel disease, then it's very useful to measure calprotectin directly in a stool sample. Somewhat 13 years after he discovered the protein, the Calpro company was established. Then we jump forward to year 2016. Here, Calpro Smart Home Test was launched into the market. A year later, our company was acquired by the Swar Life Science Group. It's a Swedish company based in Malmö. And Swar's interest in Calpro was especially our home test. Swar could see the importance of the home test and understood that this is the way forward within healthcare. This is the way development is leading us all. We need more, or we will be using more apps and do more tests and treatment at home in the years to come. A few other facts about the company. Today we are 8 employees. We are in need of 2 more colleagues. We need a sales manager for the Swedish market, and we also need a new colleague for our R&D team in Oslo. In Oslo, we have production of our reagents. Apart from that, manufacturing and assembly is done in Sweden and in Germany. A slide with some information about myself and my background for giving this webinar today, for talking to you about eHealth. I'm responsible for sales in Denmark, and I also work with International eHealth Projects and international projects run by pharmaceutical companies. I do sales directly to public hospitals in Denmark. And this hospital, North Zealand Hospital, is our largest customer in Denmark. It's a hospital that for years, with success, has offered Calpro Smart Home Test to their patients. So it's 100% introduced in the daily routine. The professor who runs this project, or who started out offering home tests to patients, is Pia Munkholm, and she's the first eHealth professor in Europe. Down here you have an illustration of Care for Today. It's a concept that Janssen, also called Johnson & Johnson, has launched. Johnson & Johnson offer to healthcare professionals this app, Care for Today. The purpose of the app is to have better conversations with the patients and to manage the patient's course of disease in an optimal way. It's also to increase awareness about how the disease is developing within the bowel system of each patient. And very importantly, it helps to provide the right care at the right time. Here we have an illustration of the Weizmann Institute. They are situated in Israel and are running a clinical study about children with IBD and nutrition. Just as Janssen, Weizmann has developed their own app, and they have integrated their app with our app. They have done that through a deep linking solution, which is basically a technical solution that makes it easier to integrate two apps. Finally, I have chosen to insert a picture of a young woman. She has gone through surgery. You can see that the red button on her belly is an ostomy, and she needs to use a bag instead of going to the toilet. If you have a disease in your bowel system, doesn't necessarily need to be IBD, but if you do get really sick, if your situation gets acute, well, then you might risk getting an ostomy. We live, luckily, in times where doctors, they are very skilled and will do anything they can to help the patient. So sometimes an ostomy is not permanent. You might have it for a certain number of months, and then you can go hopefully back to a more normal health state. But this is to show you that this is how bad things can get if things really go bad. Before working in Calpro, I have worked for companies that produce medical devices for people who have an ostomy. So I know all about how much it means for patients to be seen, to be heard, to have good help, to be in dialogue with healthcare professionals who understand their situation and who do what they can to make everyday life of the patients easier. Now we come to Calpro Smart Home Test. What do you as a patient need to perform the test? Well, obviously you need the test. You also need to have a smartphone where you need to download from App Store or from Google Play our app called Calpro Smart. You also need to have an active email account so we can send the patient messages. In the box with Calpro Smart Home Test, the patient finds a pouch. In the pouch, you find the test. You can see it here. It looks like a pregnancy test. At the end, there's a QR code that contains information about production date, lot number, expiry date, details like this. When you perform the test, you need to put the test into this blue frame. You can see here on an illustration how it will look. The box also contains this tube with buffer inside and paper that you need to mount on the toilet seat when you're ready to do your stool sample. This paper has stickers, 4 different places on the paper, and just with a light pressure with your fingers, you make the paper stick to the toilet. These stickers are quite strong, so you don't need to press hard. It will stick easily. When you're done performing the test, you just flush out the paper with the toilet water. The paper is approved for this. No problem in flushing the paper out. When you do the test, you unscrew the white top on the tube, and as you can see on the illustration, there's a sampling rod. At the end, there are 2 grooves. You need to fill these 2 grooves with stool sample. So you stick the sampling rod into the stool sample, 3, 4, 5 different places, not just in the same spot. We want as accurate as a result as we can get. If the patient has been eating fibers, food that contains grains, you might get fibers or grains into the grooves. Then it's a good idea to wipe off these particles, stick the rod back into the stool sample so we only have stool in the 2 grooves. When you do the test and you have downloaded our app, the app will show you with illustrations like this, step by step, how to perform the test. You put the white top back on, screw it tightly. There's a timer in the app that you activate, and then you shake the tube well for 3 minutes. Sometimes we are asked if you can have too much stool on the sampling rod. You don't need to worry about that, because in the blue part, there's a little hole where the sampling rod needs to go through, so additional stool will be scraped off and will not go into this part of the tube where you find the buffer. After 3 minutes, you take off the red part here at the bottom of the tube. Then the tube, it might be a little bit difficult to see here, but the tube is pointed at the end, so basically the tube becomes a little pipette. You press 2 drops out of the tube into the round circle, into the round window on the test. You start the timer in the app and let it run for 15 minutes. It's important that it's only 2 drops that you apply on the test. Otherwise, the test will get too wet and you will not have a correct result. It's important that the test lies flat on a table, and it's important that you do not place the test on shiny white surfaces, as this will make it difficult for the phone's camera to scan the result. The test works basically like a pregnancy test. Once these 15 minutes have gone by, you will see 2 lines in the test. One line is a control line showing us that the test works, and then there's a second line that gives us the result of the test. The next step in the app is that you need to scan the result of the test. And when I say scan, it is a scanning. You do not need to press any button to take a photo. You take your phone, you hold it over the test, and you tilt it slightly from side to side, move it up and down. You do this in order to find the right angle that will enable the camera to screen the result of the test. Once this is done, the result pops up here on your phone. It's like a traffic light. You are either green, you have a mild inflammation level in your bowel system, or you're moderate, like this test, or you have severe inflammation, which is the red zone. The test shows us how many milligrams of calprotectin you have per kilo of stool. After performing the test, the result is communicated or sent to the hospital or to the clinic. It depends on the setup with the healthcare system. Either the result is sent through an app, or it is sent directly to the hospital's electronic patient journal. There are 3 components that leads to the treatment that the doctor will decide for the patient. 1, you have the nominal value of the Calpro Smart Home Test. 2, you will need some information from the patient. That's what we call patient-reported outcome, also known as PRO. We need to have information about development in the disease. We need to have information about the quality of life of the patient. And then we get a disease score through an algorithm that will enable the doctor to decide which treatment the patient should receive, or if there should be any adjustment in the treatment. So the Calpro Smart Home Test, the nominal value cannot stand alone. The hospital will need additional information about the patient in order to help. On this slide, there's an illustration of such a system that is used on North Sea Hospital, which I told you about in the beginning of the webinar. North Zealand Hospital has developed a system called Constant Care. This illustrates the components in Constant Care. If we look here to the left, faecal calprotectin, that's the result of Calpro Smart Home test. If you are in the red zone, in the yellow zone, or in the green zone. Then the patients will answer some questions in a questionnaire, and that could typically be, do you go more often to the toilet than usually? These information are used to look at the total inflammation burden and will help the doctors decide if the medicine needs to be regulated. The patient will also answer questions about their well-being. For instance, do you have sore joints? Do you suffer from fatigue? Can be some of the questions. There will be questions about the patient's quality of life. Do you see friends? Do you have energy? Are you in a good mood? Are you in a bad mood? These components will help the healthcare professionals to evaluate, do we need to look into the diet of the patient? Does the patient need to take any vitamins? Is it a person who smokes? Because smoking is very bad if you have IBD. Maybe we can help the patients stop smoking. Constant Care is owned by the capital region in Denmark, so it's owned by the Danish healthcare system and is available for all hospitals in the capital region. So now we come to the topic. Why is eHealth relevant? Well, when we look at diseases like IBD and IBS, it is absolutely relevant because these diseases are chronic. You have them all of your life. It means that you need, on a current basis, some kind of contact to the hospital. The diseases are increasing in incidence and in prevalence. If you look at the number of people with IBD and IBS in countries in the western part of the world, well, it's here that we have the largest number of people with bowel diseases. And it has to do with our lifestyle. We eat processed food. We eat takeaway meals. Some of us eat it maybe once or twice a week. And it's quite commonly known that we're not always very good at getting enough exercise. So these bowel diseases are resource demanding. It's an increasing burden for the health system because more people get IBD. IBD patients, they need close monitoring and they need early detection of relapse in order to avoid that their course of disease gets worse. eHealth is also relevant because symptoms are seldom enough to assess the status of the disease. Very often the doctors, they need a combination of symptoms and diagnostic tools in order to decide or to be sure, does this patient suffer from IBD? Is it IBS? What disease does this patient have? It's important to be able to make a correct diagnosis. Other arguments why eHealth is relevant is that we have had some studies carried out at North Zealand hospitals that shows that you can reduce relapse from 77 days to only 18 days if patients monitor their disease regular with our home test, and if they answer the questions in the questionnaire that they find in the software program of the hospital, the program called Constant Care. Other programs are available with pharmaceutical companies or in other regions or in other countries. Constant Care is just an example from the Danish market. We have another study showing that the number of acute and of routine visits at the hospitals were reduced when home monitoring was introduced to the patients. The patients wrote more mails and did more phone calls to the hospital, but the cost per patient were reduced anyway. And now we come to the patients. Are they motivated to try eHealth? Do they feel comfortable with it? And the overall answer is yes, they are very interested in eHealth. You don't actually need to motivate them. The larger part would really like to do it. First and foremost, it saves time not going to the hospital. It gives you the opportunity to take active part in your own disease. It enables you to have a more constructive dialogue with your contact people at the hospital, with a nurse or with a doctor. And it's simply nicer to do a test at home, in your own environment, nice and easy, in your private home. So what do you need to do in order to introduce home test and eHealth successfully to patients? Well, we start out, as I said before, in a very positive way because patients are interested in eHealth. What we do in order to help them is that we offer them inclusion physically at the hospital. They are invited to a meeting at the hospital where they meet the nurse. Usually I'm there as well. And then we do an introduction. Now we all live under the influence of COVID-19, so we are not able of inviting the patients to the hospital. We do inclusion digitally with the patients, and this works quite well. Some patients think that it would be nice to go to the hospital, but still others say it's okay to stay at home. It works just as well. And if I have any questions, I just give the nurse a ring. We have produced an introduction video where we explain step by step. You can also see the next bullet point, how you download our app, how you create password. We introduce the patients to the test. Step by step, in a nice and easy way, we explain how do you do this. The hospital sends this video to the patients before the inclusion, so the patients can download the app before we meet on the screen, so they are prepared. When we meet, we don't spend time together downloading the app. Patients also like the possibility of having an active dialogue with the hospital. They take part in their own disease. They have information that they can give to the hospital. This is positive. It's also very positive that the hospital offers a chat function to the patients. So if you have any questions, you can send a message to the hospital and receive an answer. At the bottom, I've written that the hospital and Calpro, we are visible to the patients and we're easy to get in contact with. This is true, and it's important in order to have success towards the patients. They need to be able to reach us. They need to be able to get answers to their questions. Usually it's only in the beginning that they may have questions, and I can be quite honest and tell you that I'm not contacted by patients on a weekly basis. Maybe I talk to one patient per month. It's not more than that. Once they have started performing the home test, they feel secure and it works. So basically, we can conclude that if you want success introducing eHealth, to your IBD patients, you should allocate resources to the project. The hospital should allocate one or maybe more persons to manage the project, to run the project on a daily basis, to hear the questions that the patients answer, to get a feeling of what works, and if things don't work, what do I do to solve it? Then we come to the professionals. Are they motivated? They are. On this slide, I have listed 3 categories of professionals. It's researchers that do clinical studies, pharmaceutical companies, and patient organizations. People who work with clinical studies are interested in eHealth because this is a relatively new player on the market. It's interesting to see which benefits do we get from offering eHealth to our patients. So this is very often a topic in clinical studies. What does it bring of added value to the patients to use eHealth? Pharmaceutical companies are also interested in eHealth because it can create preference for exactly the medicine that they offer to the hospitals and the medicine that they would like IBD patients to use. It can be a way of retention, of keeping your customers, that you as a pharmaceutical company have a nice app, you are part of the innovation that takes part on the healthcare scene. So in that way, pharmaceutical companies can use eHealth in their sales and in their marketing work. Patient organizations are sometimes motivated by eHealth. In some countries, patient organizations say, no, we don't want to talk about home tests for IBD patients on our website, because we feel that this means that we claim that this test is very good and can replace traditional care. We don't want to take any decision or make any publicity for a test like that. We don't like that. And in other countries, patient organizations, they say, yes, this is super interesting. It's an opportunity for patients, so why not communicate about it? Or why not even not sell the home test through the patient organization's website? If we talk about professionals as healthcare professionals, are they motivated by eHealth? Again, the answer is yes. You can improve the quality of treatment by offering focused and individual care, as the patient will monitor him or herself on a current basis. You have the history of each patient. It's easier for the healthcare professional to reduce the duration of relapse, and you help the patients to have an easier everyday life. You improve their quality of life because you help them to get a stable course of the disease. So, if you want success as a healthcare professional when you introduce eHealth to your patients, what's important? Well, I'd say it's important that you're really determined to make this a success. You really need to be passionate about it, because you will be introducing a new way of working. So you need to be ready to introduce new work routines. This may seem hard, or some people may regard it as an obstacle. Yes, but it's not always easy to launch something new or to change existing routines. But if you want to do it, of course, it's possible. Maybe you need to find solutions to barriers in an established system. But if you're really believe in eHealth, and if you are determined that this will make a change in the treatment of the patients, and if you are convinced that this will improve everyday life of the patients, then I'm sure that solutions will be found. And of course, it can be a nice factor to be part of the development in the healthcare system. It can be nice to show that we launch an eHealth project here in our department, here at our hospital. It can give you maybe some kind of credit among other doctors, or to promote your hospital. So, what do we do here at Calpro in order to help when you want to introduce eHealth with success? I've written that we are a partner, we're not only a supplier. And when I write that we are a partner, it's to let you know that we're here to help you. It's difficult to do this introduction alone. We will do whatever we can to give you a very good start and to enable you to do this more and more independently as time goes by. We will, of course, do product training. We have clinical studies and we have scientific articles that you may find of interest. We have best practice. We have experience from different hospitals, different markets. What has our customers or our partners done in order to make this a success? And we arrange follow-up meetings in order to take a brief status and ask you, how is it going? Do you have any questions? Do you need more training? Do you get questions that you find difficult to answer? Please let us know. We will help. If we look at the technical support, if you look here into the blue circles, we have different options that we can offer to the IT partners or the IT suppliers of the hospitals or of the pharmaceutical companies that we work with. We have an API, which is application programming interface. We have our Calpro Smart app, and we have our new Calpro Smart Deep Linking app. As explained earlier, this is technically a nice solution that makes it easier for two apps to be integrated with each other. We cooperate with IT departments and IT suppliers. We have technical people in Calpro that will help when you need to start up or when you need to integrate your own app with our app. We have second line support, meaning that many of the first line questions or support you will get, you are most likely able to solve yourselves. But if you need help, we are there to support you, of course. So please contact us. This is the last slide. Here we have listed studies that has positive conclusions about eHealth, positive findings about what you can obtain when you offer eHealth to your patients. I've already talked about some of these points, that you can reduce relapse when the patient monitors on a regular basis. You will have less visits to the hospital. You will experience a decrease in your cost per patient. This may or will not come in the first years, but will come when you have implemented the concept completely. What else do I need to mention here? Yeah, I think that's basically it. If you would like me to send any of these studies to you, please let me know. If you have any questions, you are very welcome to contact me. I will get back to you. with the information you need, or I will pass on your mail to our research department. But please do contact us, and we will get back to you with the information you need. Otherwise, you can visit Svara's homepage and search for calprotectin, and here you will be able to read more about CalproSmart, but also about the other products we have that can diagnose calprotectin. Thank you for listening. Please contact us if you would like more information.